Agadem, the kingdom of ghosts and the spirit summoner. Deep beneath the towering peaks of the ever-dark mountains, far from the eyes of mortal men, lies Agadem. It is a realm shrouded in eternal twilight, hidden away in the deep, hollow heart of the world. Agadem is not just a cavern or a collection of ancient tunnels. It is a kingdom, vast and sprawling, carved out of the stone by powers long forgotten, where palaces of ancient grandeur stand upon the edges of bottomless chasms. In Agadem, no light from the sun, moon, or stars ever reaches. Instead, the halls are bathed in a magical radiance that pulses from the very walls, a cold, eerie light that shifts like the faint glow of dying embers. It flows from veins of pure, untapped magic that run deep through the earth, illuminating vast marble pillars and endless corridors that stretch for miles in every direction. The air itself hums with power, thick with the presence of old magic, untainted by the world above. But Agadem is not abandoned. Its palaces, grand beyond the imagination of kings, are not empty. They are the domain of the ghosts, ethereal beings that once ruled as mortal lords and mags in ages past. These spirits, tethered to Agadem by some ancient curse or forgotten magic, drift through the halls of their once great homes, translucent and shimmering with the faint light of the magic that sustains them. They are bound to this place, neither fully alive nor entirely dead, trapped in the chambers they built so long ago. And at the heart of Agadem, in the grandest of all the palaces, resides the most powerful of all, Valery, the spirit summoner. Valery is no ordinary sorcerer. His reputation stretches across the mortal world as one of the most intelligent, cunning, and dangerous magicians ever to have lived. His mastery over the spirits is legendary, for Valery has spent centuries honing his craft within the ghostly kingdom of Agadem. He did not find his way to Agadem by accident. Long ago, he sought the purest magic, the raw, untamed power that existed only in this forgotten realm. And once he arrived, he claimed it as his own. The kingdom of Agadem. Agadem's palaces rise from the very edges of vast chasms that stretch into the unknown. These abysses are filled with a strange, swirling light, neither entirely of this world nor any other, and within them, echoes the forgotten voices of the ancient dead. The ghosts that haunt Agadem are tethered to their ancient homes, but they are not mindless specters. They remember the lives they once lived, the kingdoms they ruled, the wars they fought, and the powers they wielded. They have become Valery's court, unwilling subjects bound to his will, but not without their own wills and agendas. The largest of the palaces is Agadem Hall, where Valery has made his seat of power. Carved from black stone and adorned with the relics of long-dead civilizations, Agadem Hall sits on the very edge of the abyss of radiance, a deep chasm that pulses with the same magical light that fills all of Agadem. Within its grand halls, Valery holds court with the most powerful of the ghosts, creatures who once wielded unimaginable power but now find themselves little more than phantoms of their former glory. Despite his mastery over the ghosts, Valery is no tyrant. He is far too clever for such blunt methods. He knows that ruling the spirits of Agadem requires subtlety, manipulation, and intelligence. Though bound to Agadem by ancient magic, the ghosts retain their personalities, their ambitions, and their memories of power. They are proud, bitter creatures, and Valery has had to tread carefully, making allies where he could, coercing or outwitting others. Many of the ghosts hate him, but they cannot deny his power or the fact that Agadem now bends to his will. Valery's true brilliance lies in his understanding of the delicate balance between the mortal and the spiritual. He knows how to walk the fine line between being a king and a captive within the ghost kingdom. He uses the spirits to gain access to secrets long lost to the mortal world, ancient spells, forgotten languages of magic, and knowledge of the world's primordial forces. In return, he offers the spirits something they crave but can never fully have, freedom. But the ghosts are not Valery's only concern. Agadem is also home to untamed, raw magic. The veins of magic that run through the stone here are unlike any found elsewhere in the world. They are ancient, pure, and impossibly powerful. It is said that the magic of Agadem predates even the gods, that it is the original source of all magical power in the world. Valery has spent centuries studying it, tapping into it, and harnessing it for his own ends. In doing so, he has gained power beyond the comprehension of mortal magicians. But even Valery, for all his intelligence and power, knows the dangers of Agadem's magic. It is a force that cannot be fully controlled. It is alive, in a way, wild and chaotic, as likely to destroy those who wield it as it is to empower them. For this reason, Valery has always approached the magic of Agadem with caution, never taking more than he can handle, never pushing too far. He knows that to lose control, even for a moment, would be his undoing. The summoning. One day, as Valery stood on the edge of the abyss of radiance, watching the swirling currents of magic far below, he felt a shift in the air, a disturbance in the magic of Agadem. His keen mind instantly sensed something was wrong. The light in the abyss flickered, and the hum of magic that always filled the air grew sharper, more urgent. Valery's eyes narrowed. He knew Agadem better than anyone, and something was coming. Something powerful. He turned and made his way back to Ardova Hall, his black robes trailing behind him as he moved through the grand corridors, his footsteps echoing through the vast, empty halls. As he entered the central chamber of Ardova Hall, he found the ghosts already gathering, their translucent forms shimmering faintly in the magical light. They were murmuring among themselves, their ancient voices filled with unease. Loranes, one of the most powerful ghosts, drifted toward Valery. In life, she had been a queen, ruling over a vast empire long lost to time. Her pale, ethereal form still carried the regal bearing of her mortal life, and her voice was like the whisper of wind through dead leaves. "Something stirs in the abyss," she said softly, her eyes narrowing as she looked at Valery. "What have you done, spirit summoner?" Valery ignored the accusatory tone in her voice. "Nothing," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This is not my doing. But something has awakened." The ground beneath them trembled, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from the very core of Agadem. The ghosts grew restless, their forms flickering as the magic around them shifted. Valery turned to the abyss of radiance. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Whatever was stirring in the depths of Agadem was not of his design, but it was powerful. And it was rising. The return of the forgotten. As Valery and the ghosts gathered at the edge of the abyss, the air grew thick with tension. The swirling light within the chasm brightened, flaring like a dying star, and then, with a great, thunderous roar, something emerged from the depths. A vast, shadowy figure, ancient and terrible, rose from the abyss, its form cloaked in dark magic. It was a being of pure energy, born of the same primordial magic that pulsed through the veins of Agadem. Valery had read of such creatures in the oldest of texts, beings of raw magic, unbound by mortal or spiritual form. They had once roamed the world in the time, before even the gods had shaped the world. The creature's presence was overwhelming, its power dwarfing anything Valery had ever encountered. The ghosts recoiled, their forms flickering in fear. But Valery stood his ground, his mind racing as he calculated his next move. The creature's voice echoed through the air, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to come from the very earth itself. I am the Forgotten One, it said, its voice filled with ancient, terrible power. I have slept for eons, but now I have awakened. Agadem is mine, as it has always been. You, mortal, have trespassed in my domain. Valery's heart pounded in his chest, but he remained calm. He had spent centuries mastering the magic of Agadem, bending the ghosts to his will, learning the secrets of this forgotten kingdom. But this was something far beyond anything he had ever faced. I have claimed Agadem, Valery said, his voice steady, though his mind raced. I am the spirit summoner, ruler of these halls. The Forgotten One's form shimmered, dark magic swirling around it. You are nothing, it said, its voice filled with contempt. But you have power. And you may yet serve me. Valery's eyes narrowed. He knew what the creature was offering, an alliance, of sorts. But to serve such a being would mean losing everything he had built, everything he had learned. He would become a slave to its will. No, Valery said, his voice firm. Agadem is mine. And I will not surrender it. With a gesture, Valery summoned all the power of Agadem, the raw, untamed magic of the ancient realm flowing through him. He raised his staff, and the very air around him crackled with energy as he prepared to face the Forgotten One, the most powerful being he had ever encountered. The creature roared, its form shifting and expanding as it prepared to strike. The ground trembled, and the ghosts watched in silent awe as Valery, the spirit summoner, stood alone against a force that had not been seen in the world for eons. But Valery was not afraid. He was a master of the ancient magic, and Agadem was his kingdom. And he would fight for it, even against the Forgotten One. The trials of Agadem, those who dare to enter. Agadem, the forgotten kingdom of ghosts, was a place of legend, whispered about in the darkened halls of sorcerers, spoken of by travelers who had never seen its depths but claimed to know of its power. The ancient magic that pulsed through its stone halls called out to those brave or foolish enough to seek it. But none who entered Agadem did so lightly, for its trials were many, and only the rarest of souls ever emerged from the kingdom of ghosts unchanged, or alive. In the shadowed corners of the world above, there were those who hungered for the power of Agadem. Scholars who sought knowledge that had been lost for centuries. Warriors who sought immortality. Magicians who sought the raw, untamed magic said to flow like rivers beneath the stone halls. They all had one thing in common: they knew that to claim such treasures, they would have to face the tests of Agadem. Few returned. Fewer still spoke of the trials they endured. And those who did, whispered of the ghosts, the ancient spirits who ruled the halls of Agadem, bound by old curses and forgotten magics. Most never saw the spirit summoner, Valery, who ruled the realm, only his shadow in the distance or felt his invisible gaze watching from the depths. But his presence, like the very magic of Agadem itself, was everywhere. The first to try, Eurus, the warrior king. Eurus, once a mighty king in the lands beyond the Everdark Mountains, was the first to venture into Agadem in 100 years. Driven by desperation and arrogance, he sought the eternal power of the ghosts, hoping to bring it back to his crumbling kingdom. His people had turned on him, his armies disbanded, and his throne was all but lost. Yet Eurus believed that with the magic of Agadem, he could turn the tide, restore his glory, and become a god among men. Armed with a blade enchanted by the greatest smiths of the mortal realm, Eurus entered the secret cavern that led to Agadem. The path was treacherous, twisting through narrow tunnels and crumbling stairways that spiraled ever downward. The deeper he went, the more the magic of Agadem hummed in the air, wrapping around him like an invisible storm. When Eurus finally emerged into the first great hall of Agadem, he was struck by its terrible beauty. Massive pillars rose into the darkness above, the stone walls glowed faintly with the eerie radiance that seemed to pulse from the ground itself. And beyond, at the edge of the chamber, a vast chasm yawned, a bottomless abyss of swirling light and shadow. Eurus took a step forward, his breath caught in his throat as a figure materialized before him, a ghost. It was the spectre of King Radamanth, a ruler from an age long past, his translucent form draped in the robes of his once great reign. His eyes, glowing with the cold light of Agadem, fixed on Eurus. "You dare seek power here, mortal?" Radamanth's voice was like the echo of a distant storm, low and rumbling. "Do you not know what waits for you?" Eurus, ever proud, lifted his enchanted blade. "I know. I will claim the power of Agadem. I will rule again." Radamanth laughed, a hollow, empty sound that echoed through the hall. "You wish to rule, but you know nothing of ruling. The price for such power is far greater than you realize." Eurus lunged forward, his blade cutting through the ghost's form. For a moment, it seemed as though the spectre had vanished, but then the light of Agadem fled, and the ghost reformed, more solid than before. Eurus felt a cold hand on his shoulder. "The first test," Radamanth whispered, his voice like ice against Eurus's ear, "is learning that you cannot fight what is already dead." The cold of the ghost's touch seeped into Eurus's skin, and he dropped his sword, his hand trembling. The spirit of Radamanth drifted away, his laughter echoing as he vanished into the darkness. Eurus staggered, shivering uncontrollably, his strength draining away. He had passed the first hall, but already the magic of Agadem was claiming him. His journey had only just begun, but his pride had already sealed his fate. The scholar, Maya the seeker. Where Eurus had sought conquest, Maya, a humble scholar from the College of Asteria, sought knowledge. She had studied the legends of Agadem for years, poring over ancient texts that hinted at the magic sealed beneath the ever-dark mountains. Unlike many, Maya did not wish to claim Agadem's power for herself, she wished only to understand it. Armed with nothing more than her wits and an ancient journal that contained what little was known of the ghosts, Maya entered Agadem cautiously, aware of the dangers that lay ahead. As she made her way through the winding tunnels, she felt the weight of the magic pressing down on her, like an unseen force testing her resolve. In the second hall of Agadem, Maya encountered her first ghost. It was Lethian, an ancient mage whose brilliance had once shaped entire kingdoms. His spirit drifted through the hall, his translucent form glowing faintly in the magical light. He watched Maya with curious eyes, as if trying to determine what manner of soul had dared enter his domain. "You seek the knowledge of Agadem," Lethian said, his voice like a whisper carried on the wind. "But knowledge here is not freely given. You must prove your worth." Maya bowed respectfully. "I seek only to learn, Ancient One. I wish to understand the magic of this place and its connection to the world." Lethian smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Very well. I shall test you." The ghost raised his hand, and before Maya's eyes, the air shimmered. The walls of the hall began to twist and shift, transforming into a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each more disorienting than the last. "This is the test of perception," Lethian said. "Find your way through, and the knowledge of Agadem will be yours." Maya felt her heart quicken, but she steeled herself. She knew the legends of Lethian, and she knew that he had been a master of illusion. The labyrinth before her was not real, but the magic of Agadem made it feel tangible, oppressive. With careful steps, Maya moved through the maze, her mind racing as she tried to discern what was illusion and what was real. Every turn led her deeper into the hall, and every step seemed to bring her further from the exit. But she was not deterred. She had spent her life solving puzzles, unraveling the mysteries of the world, and she would not fail now. Finally, after what felt like hours, Maya stopped. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She had been searching for a physical path, but Lethian's test was one of the mind. She had to stop seeing the walls as real. Slowly, Maya opened her eyes and smiled. The walls of the labyrinth shimmered and dissolved, revealing the true hall of Agadem once more. Lethian's spirit hovered before her, nodding in approval. "You have passed," he said, his voice softer now. "The knowledge you seek lies beyond. But remember, mortal, Agadem does not give without taking. The few who meet Valery. Of all the souls who ventured into Agadem, only a rare few ever glimpsed Valery himself. The spirit summoner was a figure of both dread and awe, a sorcerer whose power transcended the boundaries of the living and the dead. He did not appear to those who sought him directly. Valery came only when the spirits themselves were stirred, when the balance of Agadem was threatened by intruders. It was then, a young magician of great promise, who encountered Valery after passing through the trials of the ghosts. Then had come to Agadem seeking answers to the mysteries of life and death, a subject that had consumed him since his youth. He had survived the tests of the ghosts with a mixture of luck and raw magical talent, but his final trial came when he reached the central hall of Arduva, where Valery ruled. As Then stepped into the vast chamber, the very air around him seemed to still. There, at the far end of the hall, seated upon a throne carved from the black stone of the mountain, was Valery. The spirit summoner's presence was overwhelming. He wore robes of deep black that seemed to drink in the light around him, and his eyes glowed with a faint, cold fire. His face was ageless, his features sharp and regal, but it was the weight of his power that pressed down on them like an invisible hand. "You have come far, young one," Valery said, his voice smooth and calm. "Few reach this place. Fewer still survive it." Then swallowed, his heart racing. "I seek knowledge, my lord," he said, bowing low. "The secrets of life and death, of magic beyond the mortal world." Valery smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "All who come to Agadem seek something. But you must understand, nothing here is given freely. Everything has a price." Then hesitated. He had passed the trials of the ghosts, but now, standing before Valery, he realized the true danger of Agadem. The ghosts were only the beginning. Valery himself was the final test, the one that no one could prepare for. "What are you willing to sacrifice, then?" Valery asked, his gaze piercing through the young magician. "What price are you willing to pay for the knowledge you seek?" Then opened his mouth to answer, but he knew, deep in his heart, that the answer was not so simple. The magic of Agadem demanded more than mere words. It demanded a part of his very soul. And in that moment, Then understood the true nature of Agadem. It was not just a place of ghosts and magic. It was a test of will, of desire, of what one was willing to give up in the pursuit of power. Valery watched, silent and patient, as Then weighed his answer. But the spirit summoner already knew what the young magician would decide. He had seen it countless times before. For in Agadem, the ghosts were not the only ones bound to its halls. The secrets of Agadem, Valery's hidden treasures. Agadem, the vast underground kingdom of ghosts, is a place where ancient magic flows like rivers through stone, where the dead reign, and where secrets older than time itself lie buried beneath layers of shadow and silence. While the ghosts of kings and magicians wander its endless halls, tethered to their forgotten empires, The true power of Agadem is not in its inhabitants but in the artifacts and secrets Valery guards within its depths. Valery, the spirit summoner, has ruled Agadem for centuries, mastering its primordial magic and bending the ghosts to his will. But Valery is not merely the lord of the spirits, he is the keeper of Agadem's greatest mysteries, treasures that hold the keys to unimaginable power. These artifacts, scattered throughout the deep, echoing chambers of Agadem, each carry their own dark history and purpose. Few know of them, and fewer still have dared to seek them, for to claim one of these relics is to risk more than just death. The Crystal of Namaroth. In the heart of Agadem's deepest palace, behind towering iron doors sealed with layers of enchantments, lies the Crystal of Namaroth. This glowing shard of blue-green crystal is said to contain the soul of Namaroth, an ancient archmage who lived in the time before the Great Cataclysm. It is whispered that Namaroth was the first to unlock the mysteries of life and death, and it was he who first found Agadem, creating a bond between the mortal realm and the kingdom of spirits. The crystal pulses with a dim, haunting light, as though it still holds the last breath of life Namaroth took before sealing his own soul within it. In this crystal lies the secret to true immortality, not the shadow of life that the ghosts endure, but eternal life, bound neither by time nor decay. It is said that whoever possesses the Crystal of Namaroth can command the forces of life and death, calling forth spirits at will or even restoring their own body from the brink of destruction. But the crystal is not easily taken. Valery himself sealed it deep within the vault of eternal sleep, surrounded by wards that even the most skilled magician would struggle to break. The ghosts that guard the vault are remnants of Namaroth's followers, bound to serve their master even in death. These spirits are different from the others in Agadem, for they are not tethered by ancient curses but by the will of Namaroth himself, a will that lingers even now. No one who has sought the crystal has ever returned, and Valery ensures that only the foolish or desperate try. For Valery knows the truth, the Crystal of Namaroth holds more than just the secret of immortality. It holds a piece of Agadem's very essence. To take it would risk unraveling the delicate balance that holds the kingdom together. The Blood Scroll of Arathar. Deep within the Red Palace, where the walls themselves seem to bleed with dark magic, lies an artifact of unspeakable power, the Blood Scroll of Arathar. This ancient scroll, written in a language that predates even the gods, is said to contain the most powerful blood magic ever conceived. The scroll is wrapped in chains of iron and bone, sealed by blood rituals so potent that even Valery hesitates to break them. The legend of Arathar, the mage who created the scroll, is a tale of madness and ambition. Arathar sought to bind the blood of every living creature to his will, to control not just magic but the very life force that flows through all beings. The Blood Scroll was the culmination of his research, a spell so powerful that it was said to be able to rewrite reality itself. But Arathar's ambition was his undoing. In attempting to cast the final spell, he tore a rift between worlds, and his body was consumed by the very magic he sought to control. The Blood Scroll was sealed away in Agadem, far from the reach of mortal hands. Valery, who understood the dangers of blood magic better than anyone, knew that to leave such power unguarded would invite catastrophe. And so he placed the scroll in the Red Palace, a place where the magic of blood runs thick, and where the very air hums with an ominous energy. To reach the Blood Scroll, one must first pass through the Chamber of Sins, where the spirits of those who perished trying to claim the scroll linger, their forms twisted and deformed by the dark magic that saturates the palace. These ghosts are not like the others in Agadem, they are not bound by curses or oaths. They are prisoners of their own greed, trapped in an eternal loop of suffering, and they attack any who dare enter, desperate to escape their torment by dragging others into it. Few have ever reached the scroll, and fewer still have lived to speak of it. The blood scroll's power is so great that even Valery himself rarely ventures near it, preferring to leave it undisturbed, a reminder of the price of ambition unchecked. The Mirror of Vradin. Hidden in a small, unassuming chamber far beneath the central halls of Agadem is perhaps the most dangerous artifact of all, the Mirror of Vradin. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than a simple, dusty mirror, its frame worn and cracked with age. But this mirror holds the power to see into the deepest truths of the universe. Vradin was a seer, a sorcerer with the rare ability to look beyond the veil of reality and glimpse the future. But he was not content with mere visions. He sought to understand the fundamental truths of existence, to see the world not as it appeared but as it truly was. The Mirror of Vradin was his masterpiece, a creation that could reveal the hidden forces that shaped reality, time, space, magic, and even fate itself. However, the mirror was flawed. Vradin, in his arrogance, believed he could handle the truth it revealed. But the mirror showed him something he was not prepared to see, his own death. In a desperate attempt to change his fate, Vradin shattered his soul, scattering pieces of himself across time and space. The mirror, now cursed, reflects not just the future but the darkest truths of anyone who gazes into it. Valery, understanding the dangers of such knowledge, locked the mirror away in a chamber where few would think to look. He rarely speaks of it, even to the ghosts, for he knows that the mirror's curse is insidious. Those who gaze into it may learn secrets beyond comprehension, but the price is madness. To know the future, to see one's fate written in the stars, is a burden no mortal, or even spirit, can bear. And yet, Valery himself has looked into the mirror of Vradin once. What he saw, he has never told a soul, but it is said that after that day, the spirit summoner became more cautious, more guarded. Some whisper that the mirror showed him the end of Agadem itself, an end that even his great power could not prevent. The Iron Crown of Kyrus. In the depths of the silent throne room, sealed within a vault of impenetrable stone, lies the Iron Crown of Kyrus. This crown, forged in the fires of a long-dead kingdom, was once worn by Kyrus the Conqueror, a warlord who ruled over half the world. The crown is said to grant its wearer dominion over all they survey, allowing them to command the wills of men and spirits alike. Kyrus was a tyrant, a ruler who believed that power was his birthright and that the world was his to control. He wore the Iron Crown for decades, bending entire nations to his will, raising armies of the dead and the living to fight in his name. But the crown's power came at a cost. It consumed the mind of its wearer, driving them to greater and greater acts of cruelty and conquest. By the time Kyrus realized the crown's true nature, it was too late. His soul had been bound to it, and his body became a husk, a puppet to the crown's dark will. When Kyrus fell, his enemies sealed the crown away in Agadem, believing that only the spirit summoner could keep it from corrupting the world once more. Valery, recognizing the danger it posed, placed the crown within the silent throne room, a chamber where no sound can penetrate, where the whispers of the crown cannot reach the ears of the living. Yet the crown still calls out to those who seek power. The few who have ventured into the silent throne room have heard its voice, a seductive whisper that promises ultimate control over life and death. But to wear the Iron Crown is to become its slave, and Valery ensures that no one who enters that chamber leaves without understanding the price they will pay. Valery's true secret. Of all the secrets hidden within Agadem, there is one that only Valery himself knows. It is a secret he guards more fiercely than any artifact, more closely than any magical relic. For Valery, the spirit summoner, is not simply the master of the ghosts, he is bound to Agadem in a way even the ghosts do not fully understand. Long ago, when Valery first claimed the kingdom of ghosts as his own, he made a bargain with the magic of Agadem itself. In exchange for the power he now wields, Valery surrendered a piece of his own soul to the heart of the kingdom. As long as Agadem stands, Valery's power will endure. But should the magic of Agadem ever falter, should the ancient balance be broken, Valery's soul will be consumed, and the kingdom of ghosts will collapse into chaos. This is Valery's greatest fear, the one thing that drives him to guard Agadem so fiercely. The secrets and artifacts he protects are not just treasures, they are the pillars that hold the kingdom together. And if they were ever disturbed, if they were ever claimed by those who do not understand their true nature, Agadem and Valery would fall.